I'm a hardcore entrepreneur. That is my thing. But
Yeah.
I stay in corporate because I believe that when more people see me who look like me, they know that it's possible. I go hard for that reason. I want to continue to be a light, a beacon of hope, encouragement for so many other people who look like me.
We're very intellectual, we're innovators, we're entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
and it's time that we join platforms like this, not to dim our light, to see the potential that we have in us
Mhm.
to actually expand not only as an employer, but also as somebody who can actually employ others in with the
Yes.
talent that you have. When you grow up in a system from day one where somebody's telling you you're least likely to do something,
Mhm.
that's embedded in you as a
Yeah.
child. So
Yeah.
you're always thinking, okay, I'll never be this, I'll never be that or that. But if you move out of that zone and you travel, then you get to see people like you that are commanding the same status quo.
I thought I couldn't be this way in order to be successful, or
Yeah.
I wasn't enough because I wasn't as bulldogish as some of my counterparts
Yes.
were.
Right.
I realized once I settled in and am happy with who I am, and really, as my confidence grew, I really knew that I could be at any playing field and play on any level with anybody, and
Yeah.
we could all do it in love.
And you'll win in life by having your soul on fire.
Hello, everyone. This is Coach Mo Faul. I am the founder and CEO of Soul Power Career Coaching. And some of these women who are with me, they were in my kick ass career coaching, and we have upgraded it because we've always been about building women from the inside out, building their soul first so they can shine at a brighter level in their careers. And this is just a smattering of the Black women we have worked with, and I personally just adore. And I want to give voice to our Black women colleagues, sisters, friends, peers, etc., to talk about really what the state is of Black women in this country, Black women in the workplace, uh, promotions, recognition, etc. So we're going to have a coffee chat. Actually, I brought my tea. This is a nice tea. So I can be having some nice, relaxing tea while we're talking about some things that aren't necessarily the most favorable things to talk about. And we are going to be bold and we are going to be unapologetic about the truth. And before we dive in and introduce these lovely women, I want to share some statistics. For the last 10 years, leanin.org, the nonprofit that Sheryl Sandberg started to advocate for women's progress in the workplace, and McKinsey and Company have done a Women in the Workplace annual report. And at the end of 2024, their report showed that a smidgen of progress has been made since 2015. And I actually looked at the numbers at 2018 were the best numbers to report on. At the point of 2018, we had 32% of women overall as director level, white women 26, women of color 8%. We had at the VP level 29% women, 23% white women, 6% women of color. The numbers declined from there at senior VP and C suite. 2024, we jumped from 34% to 37% overall for women, and we go from 26% white women to 28%, and 8% of women of color to 10%. Marginal gains. And when we look at the VP level, we went from 2018 of 29% women overall, 6% women of color, to 34% women overall and 8% women of color. We're not quite making the gains that have been promised by all of the advancing and recognizing what the true barriers are in the workplace. Now, unfortunately, this report only reports the statistics based on questionnaires in certain organizations. It's a good supply of questionnaires, but they're really just talking about it in that sanitized academic language. I think we know a little bit of a different story. And I'm going to have each of you ladies introduce yourselves, your name, where you live, and what you do professionally, and then we'll open up this discussion. Dolores, why don't we start with you, and hello to you.
Hi, Mo. Hi, everyone. Nice to see all of you. My name is Dolores Edwards. I am currently living in Boston. I am a New York native, and my background is in production. I was previously an executive producer of a show here in Boston, and now I'm striking out on my own and seeing what new opportunities that there may be.
And what specific show, Dolores, did you actually win awards for?
The show that I was the executive producer for, it was called Basic Black. It was a long-standing, groundbreaking show here in the Boston area, and I was fortunate enough to win an Emmy Award, 7 NABJ awards, 4 other awards, as well as the Governor's Award, which is part of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. It's the equivalent of maybe a Lifetime Achievement Award that you would get at the Oscars for the work that I did along with my colleagues.
Well done. Well done. Beautiful. See how easy it was for her to brag about herself? Bring it out, Dolores. Let's go to Lakeisha. Hello, Lakeisha.
Hello, Coach Mo. How are you?
Good.
I am Lakeisha Bolden. I'm from St. Louis. I currently live here, work for a great organization where I am a manager. My official title at my organization is called ICA Startup Leader. ICA stands for Intelligent Controls and Automation. And I'm honored to have that title because it starts with intelligent. And
There you go. And control is in there. Love it. And Lakeisha, you're an engineer.
Yes.
Foundational training. Beautiful. Love it.
Yeah.
Glad you're here. Renata, Dr. Walton. Welcome.
Hello. So let me see. I have about 30 years in corporate America, ranging from technology, Lucent Technology, AT&T, earlier on in my career, and then migrating over to pharmaceuticals, which I spent the remainder of 23 years and really working on creating process and program excellence.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Oh, so good. Melissa, welcome to the call, to the conversation.
There it is. Had to find the unmute button. Thank you, ladies. Really honored to be here. I'm Melissa Fowler. I was a part of the program back in early 2023 and had an awesome experience. And I too have over 25 plus years in IT. Started out as a developer and then moved on into production support, business analyst, program management. And now I'm a senior vice president as an IT manager, specifically for governance and risk management and things like that. So, like I said, just truly excited to be here, interested in learning from all you ladies, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
Super. Thank you for being here. Joanna.
Yes, thank you, Coach Mo. Hello, everyone. I am Joanna Patrick. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. Lakeisha, we're going to have to get together. Yes, some connection. I am the Vice President of Talent Management and HR Chief of Staff for an educational technology organization. And I have been in talent management in some shape or form for over 24 years. Glad to be here and having this conversation with you all.
Love it. Love it. Welcome. Candace.
Hello, Coach Mo and ladies. Candace Aku. I live in Fredericksburg, Virginia now, but I'm actually from a little town called Pringletown, South Carolina. Pringle is my former last name. And I have about 15 years overall in corporate. I started out as an industrial engineer for large distribution centers, and then I transitioned to tech, where I started as a technician on ground zero, and now I have worked my way up to a senior technical solutions manager in IT, and I've been in that for the latter part of my years. And Coach, I'm actually wearing my alma mater from my high school, Cross High School. And
Oh,
I think that's a great part of the conversation because I graduated from a small, very small rural high school where a
uh-huh.
lot of kids that comes out of the rural communities, they don't make it very far. So I'm very excited to be on this platform to represent for all those
Yeah,
little babies graduating from
yeah,
rural high schools.
yeah. They got to see what it looks like.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Yes.
Beautiful. Love it. And Priscilla, welcome to the call.
Thank you
There.
for this opportunity to have
Yeah.
this platform to talk about this so important conversation. I
Uh-huh.
am in healthcare. I've worked in various
We lost you for a second there. There you are. You're back.
hospital
Hmm.
and also now I'm also healthcare IT. I just got um, a developer certification that took
Okay.
me 14 months. So I want to bring together tech and healthcare.
Yes.
In addition to that, I also created my own curriculum for education and implemented it in 3 of my kids as a homeschooler mom.
Ooh.
And they went on to do really well. I
Yeah.
won
Yeah.
900 million in scholarships for them. 900,000 in scholarships.
Wait. Holy cow. Whoa. That'll
So
take them all
wear
through
many
every
hats.
type of,
Wear
yeah.
many
Wow.
hats.
Love it. A group of highly distinguished women here, highly educated, highly accomplished. And one of the things that I want to talk about first is you all had challenges in the workplace. And we know from the work that we've done together that when we are hitting challenges on a regular basis, there's a increased level of burnout, there's a decrease in self-confidence and capability, and at some point you start with the narrative of what you've been told perhaps way too often. I'm going to call on each of you so we get everyone included, but one of the things that this report again talked about is that there is much less support, there's undermining competency, there is obviously the shouldering of more work at home. Sexual harassment has not declined over the past 10 years of this report, and microaggressions, which we talk a lot about in the coaching. And I want to just have a frank conversation about how these elements in the workplace have affected your career trajectory and how you came to a point where you were like, this has got to be something different. Lakeisha, why don't you get us started with what the obstacles looked like for you and how that started to bleed a little bit too deep to the bone for you?
Okay, yeah. So I am a believer in Christ and I've prayed for this particular job and actually a little backstory about it. When I was in college, I had applied for every engineer position that they offered.
Hmm.
And I couldn't get through to I went to different plants and interviewed and I just couldn't get the job.
Hmm.
But when God brought me back to St. Louis, he blessed me with an opportunity to work at this place.
Okay.
And everything was great at first, but then I started to experience the microaggressions that you mentioned. There was a lot of stress, my hair was falling out, and I got
Yeah.
to a place where I was like, okay, I've got to get away from this. Thank you, God, for the opportunity, but I need something different.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so at some point you went, wait, there's got to be something that should be looking different than this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Melissa, how about you? What have you experienced in your over 25-year experience in the workplace?
I'm going back to about 1989
Okay.
when I first got out of college. And
Okay.
I went from moving from New York City, then I did go to college in the South, but then moving to a really small rural town, Franklin, Virginia. Small town, it was a paper mill. And so
Mm,
this was my first corporate job, small corporate, but nevertheless a corporate job. And again,
mm,
this was a town that unfortunately still had many biases. And I believe I was a part of what they refer to now as a DEI hire, because they did not have very many women of color. Actually, there was only one more besides me in the
Okay.
entire department.
Mhm.
But again, for the most part, I believe everyone worked well together, did well, and everything was pretty solid that way. But I could never get beyond being seen as, yep, that's another one of the Black girls that we hired. And
Mhm.
even in the town itself, it had that same feel because they were still working through race issues in that town. And so it spilled over, again, country town, country workplace. And so there was just that feeling of, you could never get over that feeling of just knowing that, oh, wow, she's that higher. Anybody pointing you out, she's that higher. And so you feel the need to really prove yourself, to really work extra hard, to go the extra mile, to do the above and beyond, to not be seen as just the next Black woman on the team, but just to be seen as another teammate. And when you can see me, is all that we ask for, is just to simply be seen, see my work. Don't see me as, all right, that's the next Black woman, or that's just another Black woman that we had to hire. But what's the body of work? What was I able to contribute
Yeah.
to this? And when you see me, then you realize, wow, hey, she's
Right.
bright. She brings
Yeah.
something to the table
Right.
here. This is
Ab-
more to her than just
Yeah.
seeing through the eyes of what race that I am. And so that's what I had. I had to even move beyond that in my own head. And once I was able to get past that in my own head, I believe I was able to excel even in my next role.
Gotcha. Joanna, you are in talent and you bring people in organizations and bring them forward in organizations. And I remember in working with you at the beginning of our work together that people were promising all sorts of things and not delivering to move you forward. And unfortunately, a lot of heads nodding here when I say that because not an uncommon experience. What did you experience for yourself in the workplace as a Black woman?
Yeah, so I'll go backwards and start where you just left off. So when I joined the program, promise promotion year after year, excelling, doing all the things, and none of those things happened. Even was told at some point there's hiring or promotion pause at this time, but then my counterparts would still get those promotions. If I go back earlier in my career, when you talk about microaggressions and challenges, I think through the racism, the sexism, the age discrimination. I started in corporate America at 19 with my associate's degree and got my
Okay.
bachelor's degree in the evening. So I worked through the day
Uh-huh.
and had a host of roles that gave me a lot of exposure and a lot of opportunity. And just the age discrimination that came with that. There's a saying in the Black community that we have to work 10 times harder to even get a piece of what anyone else has. And we do. And so getting all the accolades and working at night to just be an expert in my space, I
Yeah.
still got met with a lot of challenges. I've even had some men tell me, I have pants older than you. There's absolutely nothing you can teach me. I started off in the talent space from a leadership development standpoint. So I'm
Mhm.
teaching leaders how to lead, and no one likes seeing a young Black girl at the door who's going to facilitate to them for 6 hours, 8 hours. But I was always humbled at the end of those sessions that those same people, mostly men, would come up to me at the end and say they were blown away. They couldn't believe that they were this disconnected from some leadership principles and
Yeah.
bringing those things to the forefront. So, lots of challenges along the way. I would say when those challenges happen, it allowed me to go back into my own upbringing where I had family members who told me, you are going to have to sleep with people to get far. And
Yeah.
so then it squashes you just a little bit more,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's in your DNA. I
Mhm.
have always been the black sheep of the family. I've always been the ambitious of the family. And I was
Mhm.
always told, you have way too many big dreams for this
Mhm.
world, and you've
Tone
got
it
to
down, girl.
contain
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. And when we're trying to be successful and in our heart, we're on fire and ready to go, and then we have the macro world telling us a story, and then we have the experiences side by side with coworkers and a culture. You're playing against all sorts of numbers on that. And I know that gets tiring, tedious, and it has to at some point look like, will I ever be able to break out? We're all of you are such highly educated, amazing women. And the studies actually are even showing, probably for the last 10 years, how much more educated Black women are than any other segment of the population. And I have that direct experience with all the women I've coached. Renata, you had a successful career. You moved up the ladder, but you also hit some barriers. What types of obstacles were you experiencing in your
So it's interesting, right? I was always seen, for sure. I was
Okay.
always utilized, for sure, but I was never recognized. And so that made things a lot more complex for me because I was getting the opportunities to be lead on a project. And I'm thinking it's because of my greatness, and it was, but it really was how my leaders used me in retrospect to get the project up, running, and successful. Give me a little data boy, and then they get all of the necessary things to move them to the next level. And I'm still, that took me years and prayer to remove the resentment.
Yes.
That, you know, that once you recognize that's what you've been through, it's really hard to put it down and give someone else.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, totally. You're personally carrying challenges, racism, etc., that have existed for years. And as a woman, I faced it, but I walk into a room with white guys, I'm at least the same skin color. They're looking at me different because I'm a woman, but as we've talked so many times in our coaching, like you can't hide your skin color.
right.
Dolores, how about you? You worked in working art in media and film. You actually did a show about some of these challenges and that sort of thing. How do you feel that racism impacted your career?
It's interesting. Before I was the executive producer of the program that I mentioned earlier, I've worked in the industry for over 20 years. And because I'm from New York, that's where I started my career, in New York. And I worked at a couple of the networks and cable channels. And one of the things that I always found was I always had to leave in order to move up. And in some measure, the industry itself is like that, where you leave and you move up. But I really felt like I had to leave to get more experience, because then people would say, well, you don't have this, you don't have that. I'd go out and I get it. And then once I got it, then it would be, okay, you don't have this and you don't. And after a while, I'm like, wait a minute, how much do I need to do in order to prove that I can do the job?
Yeah.
And I have a long list of credits and I'm happy to have them.
Yes.
But I also know people that I started out with that have been able to stay in their job for 25 and 30 years, and they were not the same color that I am. There are those kind of issues. The other thing that I would mention is the lack of mentorship.
Yes.
The lack of having what I would really designate as a mentor or a sponsor to rally and champion me in different career settings. And I think that's pretty much, I think it's across the board. I think there are statistics that show that when it comes to Black women, we don't have the mentors, we don't have the sponsors that really will help us elevate and get to the next level, whether it's a C-suite or just some other position. And that's a real issue. I don't think it'll change, especially now with everything that's going on, but it's a real concern. So I know for myself, what I did was I made a point of amplifying myself. So when I didn't have those opportunities, I sought them out, even if it was outside of work. I made the investment to go to or to take workshops or to just look to be able to talk to different people, even just to come to you, Mo.
Yeah.
And it was a real investment for me because you're pricey, but you're good. But seriously, it is about, but it is about investing in yourself and believing in yourself. Sometimes for Black women, it's just hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you have an ongoing experience of being left behind and not being pulled forward, it's hard to believe that would ever change. Candace, I remember when we were in the coaching environment, one of the things that, if my memory serves me, is that we helped you basically stand up and show yourself and show that you were ready for more and have those types of conversations. What was going on before then for you?
Yeah, it's so funny because everybody who spoke, I can relate to everything. And I'm gonna pick up from Dolores where she was saying that we don't have that mentorship. So what I always found funny, Coach Mo, is when I arrive into an organization, you might spend a year or so in one and transition into another, and you're struggling, asking questions, trying to figure out how things work. And people would nickel and dime the information that they give you. And then a new colleague comes into the workplace who looks nothing like me, and they automatically are equipped with a wealth of knowledge. And I'm like, I've been here longer than you, and I'm still putting pieces of the puzzle together myself, but it seems like you've been able to put the whole pie together in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
And it's the camaraderie, it's the going out to dinner and having drinks with people who look like you, and you're naturally in a more comfortable environment. So it's just a natural thing because if I came into a workplace with all of these beautiful women who look like me, I would naturally say, "Girl, let's go grab coffee or let's go grab dinner." And we would have those conversations. And so it's not the same. And it's a true barrier because you're coming in, you're doing everything yourself, you're gathering all the straw yourself, you're trying to figure out how do I present all of this information to a bunch of people who have withheld information from me. So it's like you're second guessing yourself because you don't know what's really relevant to them because you haven't had those conversations and you're just trying to come fully equipped with minimal knowledge of what people are expecting, thinking, feeling. It's a very challenging thing where this is why it causes us to do extra homework and spend extra hours trying to be experts in our field. Because if I have the facts and I show up, I'm pretty confident in that scenario. But if I'm overloaded and I also have to study, then I'm a little shaky about how I show up in the room. And so when I came to you, I was in that weird dynamic of, am I showing up? But when you showed me how to focus on soul power, then it's if I focus on the things that I'm a master in, then we can figure out the other pieces later. But that was a real challenge at the time when I came into the program.
Yeah. Priscilla, as you were evolving in your role as a pharmacist and making your way, I don't personally know too many women who are pharmacists who are Black, much less from Africa directly. That had to feel like you were odd woman out. What types of things did you have to do just to keep your stance in there?
Mine is
We're losing your connection. Maybe turn off your video, not that I want you to, but I want to hear your voice. I knew Renata had some. Let me see if I can stop the video and maybe, nope.
I'm a Black woman and also majority. Yeah. Can you hear me much better now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in research, when I did research, there were a lot of undermining because of one, there during that time in the early 2000s, there were no Black. In fact, I remember working at CDC and being, because there's so much security, people think you're a janitor or some other worker somewhere where you're not even supposed to be producing research work.
Yeah.
I started research in high school, and I had amplified myself to a level where
Yeah.
I would look young, but not, and none of my colleagues looked like me at all.
Yep.
But I
Yep.
was giving in the input that way that matched what. So that was my first. Second was when I went to after pharmacy school. I remember being in a predominantly area in Atlanta that was white, and I had a white colleague who was male, but at the time there was the presence of African Americans was just becoming more because prior to so many years there wasn't. And I would get customers that would say, where's the other guy who was here? Or they would point to the technicians who were white as being the pharmacists. And
Right.
sometimes I would say, oh, let me go get that pharmacist for you. But they would have to tell them, oh, no, she's the pharmacist. That obviously has changed, but that's 15, beginning of my years, way back 20. In tech, also, I experienced that. You are stuck with something and you're asking for some resolution in a area where you're stuck, and someone says, and why do you want to do this again?
Right.
Like
Questioning,
like
your
undermining
intellect.
my,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
why I'm here, I'm a
Right.
pharmacist, what the heck am I doing? Do I
Yeah.
really want to do this? And then in education, it was, oh, you wrote that? You actually, how did you do that? You actually won that much? It is, and for me, coming from a country that was run by all Black people, I never looked, I just saw a person. Race was never an issue until I became professional and I started seeing it. Now, I did get a lot of backlash because I'd never heard of microaggression or backlashes for speaking up, which I was doing a whole lot of that.
And I want to say welcome to America, but I hate to say that.
It's become one of my biggest issue in my career because obviously if you're Black and you speak up, then you're targeted.
Yeah.
You're targeted and you're targeted. And I had to hire coaches to help me decipher the version of me that grew up in this world where Black commanded everything, and the version of this side where you're being asked to dim your light in a country that's supposed to have opportunity.
Yeah. What an irony on one hand. Condoleezza Rice was interviewed once, and I recall this phrase from her. I think it's attributable to her. She said, America was born with a birthmark, and that's racism. It's from our founding birth. Racism was part of how we were birthed as a nation. And unfortunately, 249 years later, we're still having this conversation. One of the preeminent ways that we do coaching, as all of you ladies know, is bringing your soul alive and helping you really know who you are at a deep level before the professional identity, but to really bring that alive and allow as much as possible to shine through as you're healing some of these job traumas, personal traumas, racism, degrading competency, microaggressions, etc. What are some of the things that you've learned in lifting yourself up regardless of the environment? And I forget the order that we did this before. I might just start with you, Dolores. You're right next to my Hollywood square here. Yeah.
I think for me, and I still feel as though I'm still learning and processing, but really it has to do with voice, and both vocally, but also in the written word, but just all matters of voice, even visually, because there have been times where I feel like my voice was minimized, just as some of the ladies were talking about. Who are you? Is this implied? Who are you to be doing X or in this particular position? And having to really fight that, be willing to speak up, speak my truth. And I guess there is that phrase about doing it afraid, but really just standing my ground.
Yeah.
And saying that No, I disagree with you, or I may want to do it X, Y, Z, but really
Yeah.
the whole aspect of my voice and almost reclaiming it in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
So I can be who I want to be, whatever that next thing that I do, or the things that I write, or the things that I'm working on. And I feel that's really important because there is a sense, not only within work, but also in society, where there's a devaluation of not only as a person, as a Black woman, but also who my voice and being heard and listening to what I have to say.
Yeah. And there's an element when you are repressed so much, even if you say the correct words or the right words or your opinion, when you're putting that repressed energy into the voice, into the expression, it's just not going to come out with the same power as when you are fully aligned with you and your truth and not the repressed version. And
Mm.
I know that this is a lifetime uh, journey for all of us to really feel free and pure in who we are. And when you introduced yourself, I wanted to make sure we got the award stuff taken care of, okay? Because it's worth making sure that it's heard and you're seen that way. Really, as an Emmy Award-winning producer, that's just totally top notch. Love it.
Thank you.
Lakeisha, you said that you are a woman of God. I think those were your words, something to that effect. And I know in working with so many Black women over the years that being polite and not ruffling anyone's feathers and being church proper is, I'm not making fun, but it's a thing in the Black community.
Yeah.
How is that sort of, how are you blending your soul power and your truth and who you know that you are and what you want to be and achieve and express in the world? How do you blend those pieces with your soul power?
I'm glad you asked this question. But one thing I learned about myself in the program is how to be my authentic self and how to show up and be that person.
Yeah.
And I've learned that I can still show up authentically, but also be a woman of God
Mhm.
that someone that he would be proud of.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I value is diversity, although we are living in times where they're trying to erase it from the history books. At several organizations that I worked for, I was the diversity leader.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me like having such a value in that is the fact that I'm a woman, I'm an engineer,
Mm-hmm.
and I also have a learning disability. And so all these things,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can relate to a lot of people in a lot of ways. And I
Yeah.
need to be with a company that values that. So
Yes.
I'm in a space where I believe my company is in that place where they're like, we don't care what they're doing in Washington, we're still gonna do our diversity thing.
Yeah. Love it. So do you find now that your voice and who you are and speaking up as necessary is now congruent with the politeness that you were raised with? Like that they're moving together, that they're not conflicting with each other.
I believe so. And I think there's a balance to that. I know when it's time to speak up. I know when it's time, my
Yeah.
previous organization I was working for, people were walking all over me. I was
Mhm.
that yes, sir, no, sir type person. I do whatever you tell me to do. But now I'm like, okay, no, my time is my time. And I am
Mhm.
not going to stay here till midnight
Value.
trying to do all
Yeah.
this extra work that you want me to do.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Melissa, did you have a similar like freedom experience as well as you stepped into your wholeness and fullness? Tell me about what was that for you?
To be honest with you, it was really the big breakthrough, right? It's when the weight got lifted once I understood who I was,
Mhm.
stopped living through or living the way anybody else chose for me to live polite. I do
Yeah.
like Lakeisha, I'm of the same faith. But it is really who I am. I'm a kind person. And though I've seen women of all races who are on the executive levels who are just bulldogs.
Mhm.
And they believe that's what it takes to get to that level.
Yeah.
I don't like it. As I've learned who I am, I had to
Yeah.
become comfortable with my kindness, my all those sorts of things that go along with it. Now, do I get my point across? Absolutely. When
Yeah.
I have to really
Yeah.
kind of step it up during that conversation, I will do that. But I
Yeah.
don't feel a need to destroy anybody in the midst of that. I believe that you still can, and it's proven with me that I still can rise to the highest levels, be at the executive meetings, do the necessary presentations, and have a conversation, even when we disagree. Yeah, but I had to. But for me, it was key to get out of my own head, though. I thought I couldn't be this way in order to be successful, or
Yeah.
I wasn't enough because I wasn't as bulldogish as some of my counterparts
Yes.
were.
Right.
I realized once I settled in and am happy with who I am, and really as my confidence grew, I really knew that I could be at any playing field and play on any level with anybody. And
Yeah.
we could all do it in love.
Yeah. And I think there's a remnant from, I don't know when, and it's unfortunately alive and but a real toxic power identity that I think women feel that they have to do that in order to
Mhm.
be successful and gnash the elbows around. Um, it's certainly not today's day of humanity-based leadership, of people coming together and collaborating, of all sorts of ideas and people and experiences coming together for the best solutions. But it is still in the environment. And when you can be a role model of being powerful and nice and smart and speak up and all of that, is it easier to be more powerful that way? What's the right word there?
Easier to be more powerful. Which way, Coach Mo?
Which with being kind and be who you are, like just allowing yourself to not have to play to the stereotype of success, which is that bully
Yeah,
Yeah,
aspect.
just
Well,
being
it's
authentic.
easier in the
Yeah,
sense that it's more organic, it is more natural, it is more
right.
innate in who you are, so you don't have to
Yes.
pretend. So in that sense, it's easier.
yeah.
But is it easier to navigate the within leadership that do not adhere to those characteristics and structure?
Right.
Yeah, not so much.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is one of the obstacles that persists is a bit of culture, but it's also a bit of a remnant of what a lot of people buy into, what they have to be as a leader. They have to be the boss bully as a leader.
It also
And
sounds very male.
yes, yes, yes.
Easier from a moral perspective. Like, I'm not a mean-spirited person. I wouldn't
Mhm.
want that to be done to me. It takes
Right.
a lot of work that people don't want to put in, building the relationships, leading your team, having
Yeah.
those conversations. And so people lead by fear, thinking that's going to be easier, and it's just not. You have to put in the work.
Yeah.
I think results speaks louder than putting on a persona. But if you are able to still show results that no one else can show, then that will speak for itself as well.
Mhm.
But a question, it seems like in my organization, I do seem though, seems like those women who do take on the bulldog attitude seem to rise higher in the corporation.
I would say that speaks to the culture.
Mm.
And I think the one of the things about having a career is as you evolve your power and it becomes much more of an innate soul-based authentic power, you have to gravitate toward those types of cultures and environments because you no longer fit in that fight mechanism. And I think sometimes, and this is going way out of my lane here because I'm not a Black woman, but I've worked intimately with many, and many of them, you all included. There's a fight mentality that you're raised with because of racism. Like that you're always having to fight for or fight against or prove something. And then it's how do I do that and be polite? How do I do that and be a well-educated professional. That's a lot of complexity to manage. And when we have fight inside of us, that's a vibration that's coming in our neck of the woods.
That substantiates the trope of the aggressive Black woman. It is, you didn't start out as an aggressive Black woman, more than likely, 100%. You were an aggressive little girl. And you were an aggressive little girl to be able to navigate and get what you need done.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just not seen as something negative and within our sphere of influence and community. It wasn't until we crossed over and had to engage in other conversations with other people and other cultures that what we did wasn't good enough, because the measuring stick has always been white America, right? So.
You're absolutely, Renata. I went to a DSEG school from second grade to graduation, and having to be a chameleon and migrate into different environments, which has been a blessing in disguise. But you think about when you're young, my kids are in a predominantly white area. And so they go to a predominantly white school right now. And the same thing that happened to me is happening to them, where kids will call them niggers, the N word. And so then you're like, oh, now I've got to explain this, right? You haven't even had the conversation. My kids are 8 and 10. And so this happened a couple of years ago. And now they're fighting, right? With their words, with their aggression, with their anger, because now they know it's a bad word, but they don't really know what it means. And so you're right, it starts early and then it just continues.
Yeah. I'm reading a book about Eleanor Roosevelt's relationship with Mary Bethune in the 30s and 40s, in the Roosevelt presidential years, and how Eleanor Roosevelt was shamed a lot in her society class for having a great relationship with Mary Bethune, who, if those who might not know who she is, she started the first Black college, I believe it was in Daytona Beach, Florida, somewhere in that neck of the woods. And she was a predominantly powerful and high level Black, not just woman, in the community back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and still has a legacy here in Florida. Her name is well known here in the state of Florida. And just, 100 years ago, let's call it, we were dealing with the first lady of the United States having a close Black friend, and she had to fight for her to be invited into restaurants together. And the level of patience and grace. Now, I'm reading a book, I didn't live this, but that Mary Bethune had in those instances, it's written quite well that you're brought into the ugliness of it, is what she had to do. Now, what we're talking about is Blacks fitting into the white society. I'd love a thought experiment about whites fitting into Black society, to tell you the truth. I would love that thought experiment, because there's so much power and expression that my experience of being with my Black friends, family members, extended family members, and all of the clients and colleagues I've had, there's a freedom in there that I don't think white people really enjoy.
We don't teach our kids hate. We never have. With all of the oppression, with all of the hate and everything that has come our way, to your point, we pray about it, where our spiritual peace is high, and we still, to this day, do not teach our kids hate.
Yeah. It's unbelievable that whites do.
Yeah.
But I think that right there is what scares the moral majority of white folks with Black folks, because they cannot conceive that a people would go through what Black folks have gone through in this country and still be kind and caring and wanting to bridge the gap. They just cannot fathom that.
Yes.
And I have lots of conversation. I do TikTok lives, right? And we talk about race, we talk about racial discrimination, but we talk about it in a way that's healing. It's not, it's really just to put your truth on the table, and let's talk about, like, why are you hurting? Why are you hurting others? And what is that payoff for you? And
Right.
it's really, it's a beautiful thing to come to the realization that is we don't really understand each other. But
Yeah.
for all intent and purposes, Black women have it up on you because we understand you better than you understand us because we've always had to.
Yeah.
Yes. Amen to that. And there's an element where why do we have to make it such work?
Agreed.
We don't understand. We don't
Right?
understand. Yeah, why?
Why is it such work? I'll tell you a little story about myself, and maybe this is a pat on my back to make myself feel better. When I was a young nurse, all the nurses were white women, and all the nurse aides were Black women. Completely socioeconomic class lines, boom. And when I was a young nurse, I had my teammate, the nurse aides, who were doing their thing, their part to take care of patients. And I was like jamming with them and whatever. And we got along just great. And my nursing colleagues would pull me aside and say, how'd you get along with them so well? I'm like, what are you talking about? None of us get along with them. I'm like, I, I don't know. I treat them like people, maybe. I don't know what my little secret is. I'm just talking to them and working with them. And that was my first truly eye-opening experience about what's really going on in the world. I was protected from it most of my childhood. It was not anything that was talked about. My dad was marched with Dr. King and some of his marches in the different cities we were in. It didn't dawn on me that there was still white people who thought differently. Like I just didn't. And now I'm thrown into the workplace that has a different cultural setting point than what I was raised with. And I've experienced it my whole entire life.
Yeah.
And I I scratch my head every single day about it.
And I think what's funny, Coach Mo, is that all of us on this call are from different places for the most part. And Joanna, my daughter, 14 years old, same thing.
Uh-huh.
Majority white area, majority white school. She was homeschooled and we tried it out. And she experienced the same thing where one of her close friends, a little guy, was telling her that some guys was using the N-word in the hallway. And my daughter at 14 was like, this is my first year at this school. I know that this cannot be the first instance that this is happening. So that tells me that because there's no people of color in the staff, that they just ignore this. And so when I went and had a conversation with the principal, he said, we don't tolerate that. And he had a conference with the students. And I asked my daughter, I was like, how was the conference? And she was like, he was very vague. He didn't get to the point. None of those kids probably understood what he was saying. Just call it out. Don't use the N word and explain it
Yeah.
why they shouldn't
Yeah.
do that. Don't beat
Right.
around the bush. So she was highly perturbed that this has been going on. And I was shocked out of my mind because she's been homeschooled for so many years that we would still have to fight these battles with our
Yeah. So
children.
she was thrown into a reality that she had no idea existed.
And so was I. Like I had an idea that it existed, but I didn't know that it would still be going on at her age bracket with all of the things that's going on in the world with TikTok and like all these programs out there. Like you just think that the kids won't have to experience the same things. But it was a huge eye-opening situation where she would just rather be homeschooled again and have the freedom of her own mind. She was questioning, like, am I being invited to kids' events because I'm one of the only Black girls? Or are they really inviting me because they want me there? That's the same thing I'm experiencing as an adult. Am I being included because if you don't include me, I would stand out as not being included? Or are you including me because of my qualities and anything outside of me being a woman and a woman of color?
Let me ask
also, I apologize.
No, go ahead, Melissa. Please.
No, in regards to what our children are exposed to as far as the N-word and things of that nature, because mine are adults now, but they too went to an all-white school. But what I found that what was most disturbing to me is that many children in the African American community listen to certain types of music or whatever that continue to pour out that word. Like it has such different meaning in their generation now than it did back in the 30s, 40s, 60s when I was born or whatever. And I'm troubled because it does not, they don't seem to understand it on so many different levels. And it's just being said as just another word and I don't know, how do we deal with that part of things either? Because
Yeah.
that's extremely disturbing to me that it's just they're in a culture of no matter, regardless of the race, but
Yeah.
especially through certain music, it just really comes through with all other kinds of words and how to describe women.
Mm.
Another
Yes.
big thing, just using the B word to describe women, and these are our own putting that out there. So the whole thing is just extremely frightening to me. I don't know exactly how to deal with it or what anybody.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And we got an exacerbation of that during the Super Bowl, didn't we? The halftime show, and specifically also what Serena Williams was criticized for. Everyone was just jealous of how she looked.
Yeah.
She,
Come on.
she looks fantastic, and she can crip walk, which I wish I
I
knew how to
mean,
do.
Talk her butt off.
And she can
can
play
you see beauty and alignment and awesomeness, or do
Yeah.
you have to criticize that?
Yeah.
It's I guess it comes from, let's face the tiger in eye to eye. Whites are losing control of the world that they put together in the way they put it together. And there's an awful big shift of power and money in this country moving into the blacks, and let's just segment it to the black community, both in arts and athletics. And that level of power is helping infiltrate a like a belongingness in the way I look at it. So that is pushing the black community into a power position. And I frankly love it. I'm like, bring it on. But some people are losing out because of that. And when you look at some of the critique of Jalen Hurts, for example, is an athlete who got really critiqued. I don't know if Patrick Mahomes having lighter skin made it a little bit easier for him to come up and that sort of thing. Jalen Hurts also has a all-female, and I believe it looked like all of the females on his management team are black women.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because he said, they get shit done. I know it. And that's who I wanted to surround myself with. And look at him go. He's now the Super Bowl champion. And look at the halftime show. Black community and black art on display at the highest level maybe ever in our country. This, how many years? 13 years after Barack Obama left office. How many years has it been since 2015? 10 years. 10 years since he left office?
Yeah, 10 years.
That's
It was
not
11.
So it's like we keep pushing forward, and then it's like the backlash. And now we're in massive backlash period. God bless us all.
One of the things that I was going to say when you talked about the successes of Black Americans, I think it's also important to remember that women start businesses. Black women start businesses at a very high rate and are
Yes.
entrepreneurs. So that's another factor too. We're starting to read about more Black Americans that are actually billionaires. So that ties into
Yes.
the power base.
Yep.
And, you know, this whole, we used to call it what, the browning of America.
Mm-hmm.
And there is this shift. This is, oh, we don't like this. Or there's this, I don't know, this idea that we're taking something from other people.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've already talked about how educated we are.
Yep.
And how we're moving through things. My sense was always like, there's enough to go around for everybody.
Amen. And could we just have everyone in this country at a minimum really get that? Like, really get that? We all rise with increased talent and light from everyone. I want to read, Renata, you had some really interesting comments in some of the pre-questions, if you don't mind me reading a little bit here. When I have to engage, I pray, breathe, set my intentions, and then receive, read the room, to understand what is needed from me at that moment. And in all manner of excellence, I dive in heart and soul, and feeling full, I ask myself if I have served well. Then I bow out gracefully. I have not, however, mastered the would have, could have, should have. My soul power self no longer allows me to ruminate on it. So I just get the impression that you've always had this intention of leaning fully in with who you are. And knowing the conversation that we've had this evening so far, that hasn't always been welcomed.
Yep.
Thanks for
And
giving
now
up,
I don't give a
Renata,
shit.
but we're not interested in pieces of that. So now you're saying to yourself, I'm still gonna show up as me, but I'm not gonna wear the burden of whether that was received by someone else. Not that you're doing it to instigate someone, but you're saying, I'm leaning into me fully. And if that's not received by, let's call it you, I'm just going to let that go and not stay in it and stay frustrated. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, that's 100%. And I think a couple of things happen here. Turning 58, getting all of this gray crown right here,
It's looking good.
daughter grown,
Looking
retired, husband doing what he's supposed to do, has really allowed me to understand fully who I am and
Uh-huh.
be okay with it. Like her, like I
Yeah.
like, and then not
Right?
giving a damn whether or not someone else does.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be kind. I'm not going to allow you to make me unkind.
Yeah.
But I'm also not going to stay around where love isn't being served, where the energy is
Yeah.
not rejuvenating,
Yeah.
reverberating, or any
Yeah.
of that good stuff.
Mhm.
And I'm okay with bowing out gracefully. I'm actually learning to be by myself, and it's pretty cool.
That could be some of the best company in a day, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Rock on. Candace, you talked about soul power is leading within this deep sense of passion and your own personal vision for who you want to be in the world and basically what you want to express in the world, and feeling that has to be felt through the actions that you take and that you're making a difference. I think your words are that it's making a difference because you're being authentically you.
Exactly. That was what I struggled with when I came into the workplace. I'm looking at, there's no one here that looks like me. So let me try to do some of what they're doing. Or if that's what it takes to get to that level, then
Yeah.
how do I measure up against that? But now I don't even, I'm like in tunnel vision where this is who I am. This is what I know my power is. And so every day I'm focused in my power space and I'm just killing it. I'm just executing in that power bubble, no longer seeing how I measure up against anyone else. I just do what my soul is calling me to do. What am I passionate about? And what will move the needle from my perspective?
Yeah.
And then have the right conversations, because I feel like in the workplace we have to develop allies. And sometimes it might not come across well if I say it, but if I have an ally who is a leader, they're not going to want to do the work necessarily, but they might advocate for me and they might put that idea out there. And when they put that idea out there, they're going to say, Candace is going to be leading this. And if you have any questions, talk to Candace. And then that's how you get around the barriers of my own voice. Let me go through someone else who has the voice and let me sell them on it. And that tends to work as well.
Yeah. I love that. And Lakeisha, you put in your responses about how you finally have a sponsor at work and you're hoping to basically pay that back by being an impact player as a Black woman. Can you talk to us a little bit how the soul power and the confidence led you into being able to be in that spot, that situation where you were able to receive that support in your organization?
The type of person who loves to create or make relationships with other people. I'm very people-minded, and I love to meet new people and do things of that sort. And I love it when I'm in an organization where we're all working together for a common goal. And having sponsors and mentors who's helped me along the way, I feel like I owe that to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I learned in school, I was one of the leaders of the National Society of Black Engineers at my campus. And our mission actually the mission statement now is to increase the number of culturally responsible Black engineers who excel professionally, excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community. And that positively impact the community part always stuck with me like throughout my life. So I feel like being a mentor, having mentors, I'm able to fulfill that dream of being a positive impact.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Joanna, you've gotten your voice. You're playing big. You're playing all out. What has that taught you about like just being who you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I like Renata have always leaned in, knew who I was, but when it was other people couldn't accept all that,
Yeah. Yeah.
I make room for myself, just and
Wow.
respect myself 100%. My boundaries are no longer 80%, 100%. I'm flexible, but my boundaries are my boundaries. And we talked about having faith. So my faith shows up in a big way. Like you're gonna hear me talk about the Lord. You're gonna see me with my Jesus pieces earrings on my necklace. Like you're gonna see all of that. But I'm also gonna do things with love while I stand on business. Yeah,
It comes together, doesn't it?
yeah, it does.
It's not one thing over here, one thing over there. And to me, that's the beauty of being a whole integrated person and not feeling like you have to act a part or play down certain things. When you're all in, how is that benefiting your family?
Oh my goodness, I stand on business at home now too. I started people pleasing really because other people was choking, right? And even with your husband, my husband intimidated and all the things, and I believe that moments too where things happen for women and there is a moment of something. It may not be a full intimidation, or we don't have gender roles in our house, but then a gender role sneaks in, it creeps in. So I
Mm,
stand on business at home as well, while I
mhm,
stand on business at work. And if we have to recalibrate and reset, then we
mhm.
recalibrate and
Yeah,
reset. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's cool. Melissa, you said your kids are older. What are they learning from you now, though? What are they seeing that's possible through you?
I recently got married, or remarried, I should say, back in May. And my son did the toast.
Hmm.
And he's in his toast. He said to my husband, James, he said, James, I know that you must be a good man because my mother doesn't take junk. And I was like, if I guess that's what I taught him. We don't take junk. We strive
Yeah,
for the best and everything. And that really warmed my heart to know. I was like, okay, he got something there. Because you never,
yeah,
your kids, they're both really great. But to hear him say that really blessed me. And I was like, oh my goodness, that was big. And I see the both of them going for the best in their lives.
yeah,
Recognize it now because again, you have to put it out there. He said, this is where we learned this. And we know that you must be. So that really warmed my heart to know it, for him to say that, because he was the tough kid. Raising a boy is no joke. But
mm,
him to say that was major for me to hear
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes we don't see all the lessons that we put down until our kids are older. Kids are in their 30s, and it's, yeah, I guess you learned a lesson or two, or came
Yeah.
out all that okay.
I want to tell you a story. I will tell you a story about my 27-year-old, 27. So she graduated college soon during the time that I joined this program, and was really getting involved in finding myself and giving voice to what it was I wanted.
Yeah.
This little girl has gotten 3 promotions on her job. But
Wow.
the kicker is she applied for this job not knowing what the job was. So when they called her in, she called me up and she's like, I don't even know what this job is. And I said, well, I suspect you need to look it up and see what the requirements are. So she was like, I don't even. So anyway, they called her in for an interview. And the software that she had to learn, she didn't know. The man gave her a week to get the certifications to come back and have a second interview. In 3 days, she not only got the certification required for the role, she got 3 more. And so they hired her. She tripled her salary because she was a school teacher. When she came out of college, she went and served in underserved area for 3 years. That's what she wanted to do. She wanted to give back. So she knew when she was ready to go for the gusto.
Yeah.
And she just got another promotion. She just texted to me 2 weeks ago. And I am just so tickled pink that she is taking my pain, my aggravation, and my lessons and flying, soaring. Right. And I'm just like, and you tell others, don't gatekeep. You tell others, ask for what you want.
Yes. And what you deserve.
Yes, that thing makes my heart warm because that's what we all want. That's what I want my daughters to be able to not start at ground zero again, but start where I am and continue to soar. And that's what it's all about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think the program, this
Thank you, Priscilla.
Coach Mofa program has been very helpful and is contaminated into the kids who are around us. I would say that, and I can relate to that comment because children become they emulate what they see. And of course, for the newer generation, social media has given them a voice where we didn't have that voice as women. And being in this platform is where our voice came out.
Yes.
Because we were never trained to have a voice, or you were taught to dim yourself. And the stats now are showing, like Coach Mo just said about this shift in, I read a lot, just like she does. There was an article I read that said 16 trillion of the economy, which is 60%, is in the hands of diversity and women. So to me, that tells me that we're very intellectual, we're innovators, we're entrepreneurs, and it's time that we join platforms like this, not to dim our light, to see the potential that we have in us to actually expand, not only as an employer, but also as somebody who can actually employ others with the talent that you have.
Yes.
I was reading the Citigroup report. It was saying that women and Black Americans innovation will increase the GDP by 640 billion.
Wow.
So that's not information that's being put out there by media. They want to continue having this conversation about DEI to get us all rattled and fearful. But we have our own God-given talents. And by one of the things that I have encouraged most people to do, especially Black families, is to allow their children to travel outside of the US. Something that I did a lot with my kids, and they were very bold, very unapologetically out there, conquer conversations that a typical young Black person wouldn't. And when I look back, it was the travel. I got them out of their comfort zone into areas where they were able to open up their minds, because when you grow up in a system, from day one where somebody's telling you you're least likely to do something, that's embedded in you as a child.
Yeah.
So you're always thinking, okay, I'll never be this, I'll never be that or that. But if you move out of that zone and you travel, then you get to see people like you that are commanding the same status quo that someone else is telling you you can't do.
Yes. That is a great perspective to really open our horizons up for young people.
Where somebody's telling you you're least likely to do something, that's embedded in you as a child.
Yeah.
So you're always thinking, okay, I'll never be this, I'll never be that or that. But if you move out of that zone and you travel, then you get to see people like you that are commanding the same status quo that someone else is telling you you can't do.
Yes. That is a great perspective to really open our horizons up for young people, that everything that's the narrative here in the US isn't everything out there. And I think one of the things that I want to help women do through the work that we do is that when you're soul powered, you're creating the narrative. You're allowing yourself to have the expression of yourself as a unique human being on the planet to be all that you can be and all who you are, and not to dim your light. And that in and of itself changes the world. Dolores, bring us home with some ideas or thoughts that you have as a filmmaker, as a producer. What would you like to see more in the media relative to this topic we're talking about this evening?
Definitely more conversations, more nuanced conversations, not the about DEI and DEI, that's important, but to be a little bit more nuanced, to get more insight about who are the faces, who are we talking about, but also just to have the candid conversations. And it may not necessarily be in mainstream media, because there are some issues with mainstream media in terms of the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
But there's also, I think, almost a new frontier where people are having conversations like this on Zoom, and they're putting them on Facebook, or they're starting podcasts and putting them on YouTube. It's really about communication, and also just newsletters, putting that information out there. And I think also it's also about remembering, it's going to sound like it's weird from like the Lion King, but remember who you are. But it really is remembering who you are, remembering the gifts that you have.
Yeah.
And always know that, and don't be deterred. And as you and some of the other women have mentioned, don't dim your light.
Yeah, absolutely. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation personally. I have appreciated each and every one of you, and we lost Melissa traveling early in the morning. I have appreciated each and every one of you caring enough about the culture of America, basically, let's just face it, to be advancing more toward an absolute blending. Some of the conversation about racism and prejudice and that sort of thing is all about the fact that we're fighting as people who are different than us. I love it to be blended and coming together with different viewpoints and ideas and backgrounds. And I've appreciated each and every one of you sharing your aspect of you. I don't ever want to pretend that all Black women are the same. That's stupid. But coming together from a variety of different angles on this topic, which is still, unfortunately, a really big topic in our generation, how we allow ourselves to step out of a racist culture and into expressing ourselves no matter what, and not feel the boundaries of racism or sexism influencing us. And so I really appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate knowing you. I appreciate having guided your souls to lift up and have you have a lighter journey in life, and to influence the generation that we are all influencing, not just ours as peers, but the people who come from the next generation, and hopefully even theirs being even better. So thank you very much. I don't know if there's any last words any of you want to drop in. Joanna.
I encourage us all, the next time there is a conversation regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I know this wasn't just that topic, that we actually say those words and not use the acronym. I think they have made it so easy to weaponize an acronym. And when you say the words, people have to look at each word and then tell you which one they have a problem with.
Oh, love it.
And I just encourage us all to stop saying DE&I and call it exactly what it is.
I'm on board on that. Thank you. Fantastic. Lakeisha.
I was thinking along the same lines, but as we were talking tonight, one of the things I thought about when I joined the workforce, it was diversity and inclusion. And then we added the equity part. And then there were organizations that added the belonging part. No
Right.
one said anything about belonging. So does that mean that we still belong in the workforce? They get rid of DEI, but we still got the B, huh?
We could just make it a B initiative. We could just make it belonging. We all belong. I love it. I love it. Candace.
Yeah, Coach Mo, thank you once again. I think it's important to have people like yourself who just create space. That's very important in any field, any organization. And I think that seeing is believing. So even at my core, I'm a hardcore entrepreneur. That is my thing. But
Yeah.
I stay in corporate because I believe that when more people see me who look like me, they know that it's possible because not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. And I'm just blessed that I can do both. And so I go hard for that reason because I want to continue to be a light, a beacon of hope, encouragement for so many other people who look like me.
I love that. And I love the fact that you absolutely grabbed your high school and are honoring them tonight with
Go children.
your representing. I love it. I love it. Ladies, our Soul Powered Sisterhood is here for the duration, and I want to lift your voice. I want to recognize the struggles and the effort and the talent and the gifts that you all have as individuals and as Black women and as the Black history of this country, having generations that you're from having pulled themselves through completely unthinkable situations and conditions. And all of them are standing around cheering you on. I am sure of it.
Yep. And on that, I just want to say to my sisters that you are Black history. You don't have to do the Mary Bethune McLeods. You don't have to go tell your history. You are, in fact, Black history.
Ooh, love it.
I receive that.
Yeah.
Boom. Bring it in.
Thank you,
Mo,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Ladies, thank you for blessing this episode. It'll be in the podcast this weekend.
Coach Mo.
Yes, Priscilla.
Thank you so much for giving this platform.
Yes.
So on time, and I can see where this is going to blossom. The timing is perfect. I think this is the time that we should not dim our lights, but
yes,
the stats are in our favor, as it
yes,
shows. So despite what other folks are saying, numbers don't lie.
And let us persevere in the light and talent and gifts and voice, and expression and grace and kindness and all of the high vibing things that all of you lady are individually and collectively. In my experience as a Black community, I am like all in. Give me more. Bring it.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you all ladies. This has been so blessed. I'm just feeling happy from the toes to the top of my head. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mo.
All
Right,
right.
see you all
Have a good
soon.
night.
Thank you. And folks, this is Soul Powered Revolution. We're doing it. We're moving things. We're moving things forward. We are not letting things slow down.
Definitely. I enjoyed you, ladies.
Take
Enjoyed
care.
you too.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you all. Soul Powered
Have a
Revolution.
great night,
Let's
you
do it.
guys.
Everything that women face in the corporate world, in life actually, can be counterattacked, counteropposed by a woman's powerful internal sense of being. And I call that your soul power. I want to help more women understand their soul power, and I want to create a soul-powered revolution. This is Coach Mo, mofaul.com.